Hi everyone, this is my next little video in my series, Every Step You Take. I've been talking about entering into promise, entering into the inheritance that God has set out for us. I believe prophetically that this is a time for those of us who are living in the experience of the love of the Father and moving into sonship to begin to enter into our promised inheritance. And because, as I said in one of my previous videos, that servants can never inherit the promise. Servants cannot go into the inheritance. It's only sons and daughters who can go into the inheritance. And this morning I'm just making this video here in the morning. I want to just take some things that the Lord has quickened me out of the third chapter of Joshua. I encourage you to read through from the beginning. And for this morning, I'm looking at some things from chapter 3 in the book of Joshua. So I want to say, first of all, there's a couple of really important things that I want to bring out in this video. They're quite I've been really asking for the Spirit's help to articulate them clearly so that you will be helped and encouraged by them. Now, what I want to say here from this chapter, third chapter of Joshua, is that after the land has been spied out, after you've begun to experiment, if you like, if you spy out the land to try out to see what your inheritance is, and when you begin to honor the small things, to realize that the inheritance is entered into by the sole of the foot, then something else is required. And this was the thing. This thing that is required is what held the children of Israel back. That's why many of them didn't actually enter into promise. The next thing that was required was that they had to cross over the Jordan. They had to cross over the Jordan. And, the distance from Egypt to the Promised Land in the Old Testament was actually only an 11-day journey. But it took them 40 years. It took them 40 years to come to the place where some of them entered in, because they went round and round and round. And the reason why they went round and round and round is that they were not prepared to make this next step that I'm going to talk about. And this next step that I'm talking about is the crossing of the Jordan. When we come to see what the Lord has promised us, what God has promised us, there's something that we cannot avoid. And it is a leap of faith. It needs to have faith to enter in. Faith is required when there's no guarantees, when there's no certainty. But while we always look for certainty on one side of the Jordan, while we always want to live in certainty, we will not have the faith to cross over into the new. And this is probably one of the biggest steps that have to be taken. We have to go through this Jordan, this River Jordan, over to the other side. And it's what I call a quantum leap through death. A quantum leap is to make a leap further than what you can do in the natural. If I was to jump from my house to Lake Taupo, which is a few kilometers away, if I was to jump that would be a quantum leap. If I was to jump 1 meter, it wouldn't be a quantum leap, but to jump further, even for me to jump a length of 10 or 20 meters is a quantum leap. And so what has to be done is this quantum leap through death, through the Jordan. Now, can be a big deal, but in other ways it's not a big deal. For example, let me give a few examples here. Every time I stand up and speak, or even every time I do this little video, it takes a step of faith. Because I don't really know. When I started this video series, I didn't know if it would be effective, if everyone would watch it, if anyone would watch it. There was no guarantees on the other side, but you have to take a step of faith. In anything, even if you're believing God, if it's on your heart to go somewhere, to go to a particular school or conference, and you don't have the money for it, it takes a quantum leap of faith, a quantum leap through death to apply for the thing when you don't have the money, because there's no guarantees. It takes a quantum leap to move forward in a relationship. I don't want to start talking about romantic relationships, but when a guy asks a girl to marry him, there's a step of faith, because she might say no. I mean, hopefully couples know each other well enough so that there isn't such a leap of faith, but anything involves a leap of faith, a leap into the unknown, a leaving behind the status quo, a leaving behind what was comfortable. So in order to enter into our inheritance, we need to face this Jordan. Now I want to bring something else out here. When they came out of Egypt, the Exodus, who went ahead of them into the Red Sea? Well, it was Moses. As I said in my first video, the children of Israel didn't really have to they only had to have enough faith to believe in their Saviour, if you like, Moses, because Moses was the one who put his staff into the Red Sea and it opened up. But you see here in Joshua that there's something else happens. In order to go into Jordan, the people who go into the River Jordan first are the priests carrying the ark, and they stand in the Jordan. The priests stand in the Jordan bearing the Ark of the Covenant. Now, this is really important in terms of entering into our inheritance. And let me put it this way, until you and I realize that we are a bearer, a carrier of the incarnational presence of God, we will not be able to enter into inheritance. In order to enter into promise, you have to realize that you are a priest yourself, that you are one who within your human personality, within your soul, your emotions, your body, is a carrier of the ark. That you are a person, I like to use this expression, little old me, that you, with all of your weaknesses, all of your failures, all of your problems, all of your lack of success at living the Christian life, until you realize that you actually incarnate and carry within yourself, as Paul said, that Christ in you is the hope of glory, you will not be able to enter in and cross over into your promise. If you think that that I or the preacher carries the presence of God, but you don't, you won't enter into promise. You have to come to the realization that you yourself are a priest, that you can, whenever you go through situations, when you take a leap of faith, even when you go through crisis, that you are a carrier of the presence of God. And when you begin to realize that, you can go into this place, into the middle of the Jordan, into a place of transition. And you can stand in that place knowing that Christ lives within you, and you will find that the waters will roll back, the waters will go back. Now, let me just say this. This is quite a strong thing that I'm saying. This is quite it's quite prophetic. Let me say this, that in this Old Testament story, the Ark of the Covenant was built in the wilderness. It was built in the desert. And I want to say this here. The desert or the wilderness is the purpose of the desert, the purpose of the wilderness is so that we become incarnational carriers of God's presence. You see, part of I just want to talk about in contemporary Christianity, in the Christianity we many of us have lived in, we see that the anointed preachers, the pastors up the front, the leaders, the people who write books are the carriers of God's presence. But when you find yourself going round and round in the wilderness, that's the purpose of that, is so that you learn and you come to a place of building the ark, that you come to a place of realizing. And you will stay in the wilderness until you realize that you are the priest and you are the ark, that you are the one who carries the incarnate presence of God within you. And when you begin to realize that, your wilderness journey is coming to an end. When you begin to realize that you yourself are the dwelling place of the Trinity, your wilderness is coming to an end, and you can then begin to move forward towards this leap of faith in the Jordan. And you can go into the Jordan and you will find that the waters will roll back. So that's, I want to just make those 2 points very clearly in this video, that in order to enter promise, we need to take a step of faith. We need to make this quantum leap through death. And the other thing that we need to realize is that going through the Jordan, it was the priests carrying the ark who went through first. They went and stood in the Jordan and everyone followed them. And prophetically, I'm just saying, in the new covenant, we're all priests, you see. We're all priests. Everyone is a priest. Everyone is an incarnational carrier of God's presence. And when you realize that you don't have to come up to some sort of religious standard to be an incarnational carrier of God's presence. In the new covenant and sonship, that's who you are. But when you realize that, you can begin to stand in the middle of death, if you like, in the middle of the Jordan, and you will find that the waters will roll back and that you will cross over to the other side and begin to take your inheritance. So I really hope that that is helpful. If anyone has got any questions on this, please write them in the comments section on my website or on the YouTube section or on Facebook. I'm willing, again, as I said before, to enter into some dialogue to give clarity to some of this stuff. But I really hope that this blesses you and helps you, and I'll see you soon.